Hello, welcome everybody. Nice to have you here. I'm just gonna give the others maybe 1 or 2 minutes at the most to have them join and not miss the first part of this webinar. But if you're already here, thank you for being on time and welcome to another Solarplaza webinar. This time we're talking about the Finnish market, especially how can you earn the alpha in the volatile Finnish power market. So it's a very exciting topic, and we have a very exciting speaker to guide us through the next 60 minutes or so. And yeah, well, I for one am looking forward to this. I hope you are too. And I can see that our number is steadily growing, so I'm just gonna give it maybe 40 more seconds, and then we can start. So if you haven't grabbed a glass of water, now is your time to do exactly that. All right. Welcome to the new people. Hello again to those who are here already since 2 o'clock sharp. That's Amsterdam time or Helsinki time. It's the same. However, I'm sure that you're from all across Europe. We're not in a single time zone, which is very, very appreciated, but it's also very suitable, I think, because we are talking about the Finnish power market, but we're not only talking to local players, but with all companies that have an interest in the Finnish power market. But before diving into our top subject for today, I was welcoming you to another Solarplaza webinar. So let me just take 1 minute to tell you a bit more about who we are. We are established in 2004 and based in Rotterdam. And this spring, we actually celebrated an awesome milestone, having organized already more than 250 events worldwide. We have been present in 51 countries so far, but we're still counting up from that number. And we do have a network of 60,000 plus solar PV professionals, and most of you are already part of it. So a big thank you on that. Of course, we are launching, you might have seen this recent news, we are launching our new knowledge and network platform on our website, www.solarplaza.com. So if you haven't seen the new clothing of our website, don't be a stranger, visit us and see what you like and what is new there. But that's enough about Solarplaza. Me personally, I am Victor Georgescu. I am part of Solarplaza, and I promise you that I will be the least interesting person that's presenting to you today, because we have a very special guest, and he is Matti Parpala, and he is the CEO and co-founder at Will and Must. Before giving him his mic, just a few organizatorical details and announcements. So this is the agenda for the day, well, for the next 55 minutes. And we will have a presentation from Matti in a few minutes, and then at the end, a Q&A session. I encourage you to post your questions as they appear. And you have a special box, a question box, and you can see in the top right corner, it's the question mark. You can definitely pose all your questions there, and we will answer all of them or most of them at the end of the presentation. If you do have technical issues or any other problems, please feel free to use the chat box, and I will get your messages and try to solve whatever difficulties you might have. We are sharing this recording with all the attendees after the webinar, so you will be able to go back and see some slides as they are presented right now. All right, so taking the stage, we have Matti. He is the managing director and one of the founders of Will and Must. Who is Will and Must? Well, if you were active in the Finnish power market, there's a good chance you already know them, since they have been an active developer on that market, and also they have been working not only with local partners, but with international partners as well. So Matti is on the screen, and as soon as he will unmute himself, I am going to shut up and let him take it away.
Thank you very much, Victor, and thanks everyone for attending. Pleasure to be here presenting to you during these volatile times. I'll take a short moment to introduce what we do, and then dive into the topic of today. And let me hear your questions anytime you have something in mind. Let's hope that I can switch to the next slide. Should be working. Yes, it is. Great. All right, so just a couple of words on Will and Must. As said, we have been active in the Finnish market for a few years now, founded in 2022, and we focus very much on creating projects that are buildable from the very beginning and throughout the journey, from land acquisition to permitting, and then on to actually preparing the investment decision. And we are a small company, just a team of 4, but we have an extensive network of local specialists whenever we need expertise, technical or nature or whatever is needed during the project, whether it was PV or BESS. And our main target clients are international companies looking to develop or build our own in Finland, and we have a portfolio of several hundred megawatts, both PV and BESS, which are ongoing, and targets ready to build are between this year and in the coming 2 years, 1 or 2 years. And our main public reference so far is the PV portfolio together with FRV, the large Spanish long-standing developer. That's a few words about us and about myself. As said, I was one of the founding partners in Will and Must. I have about 10 years of exposure to energy and infrastructure sectors. I starting with oil and renewables, some telecoms and financials on top of that as a consultant. Then I was in the board of directors of Vantaa Energy, which is one of the largest Finnish utilities, and we made a lot of renewable investments during that time and conversions to less CO2 intensive facilities at that time. And in Port of Helsinki, I was also the chair of board of directors during the last nearly 10 years. I also have a fair share of exposure to local politics through my councillorship in the city of Helsinki, which helps to navigate the local tensions between different stakeholders, which are often present when developing renewable assets around the country. I'm by my education, I'm partly an economist and partly a public policy person. So I'm no power market analyst, so to say, and no engineer, but of course I've had my fair share of exposure to those things as well, and those have given me some idea on what could be suitable strategies on making a viable business in this sector in Finland. And let's dive into that topic next. First of all, I will give you an idea on part of you are probably Finnish and part of you are not. So some of you may know this already, but just as a background, how does the Finnish power generation market look like? And when we're talking about solar, the important part is to understand how it looks in the summer right now. So first of all, we have a strong nuclear and combined cogeneration industry, combined heat and power plants, which generate 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts of energy during a normal summer month, which is more than half of the energy. And then you have the variable part, the amount of renewable energy on top of it, the light green being wind power, the light yellow being solar power, and the light blue being the hydro power. And the important thing is that the amount of PV, which is light yellow here, it peaks in summer at about 11 to 12% of total generation right now. That's the situation where we are right now. This includes pretty much all of the industrial scale solar energy, and perhaps a part or an estimate of the small scale energy. I think the total estimated amount of solar energy installed in Finland is now a bit above, sits at maybe 1.2 gigawatts or something like that. But the important thing, I think, which goes somewhat to the contrary compared to many other markets, is that actually small scale PV installations have decreased, at least in 2024. It's just that the consumers' benefit out of those installations is very small, or even doesn't exist. So whereas in some European markets people are installing solar power to their homes, that's something that is actually not happening as much as in Finland right now. We'll see how it develops in 2025, but definitely the numbers are different than during the Russian invasion to Ukraine, and when the energy prices spiked for a while, when things looked quite different. Why I'm saying this is that I think the saturation in which has been causing, like the solar power saturation, which has been causing the legendary duck curves in many European countries. I think in Finland we are quite not yet there, and when we will get there, it will take some time. Still, given the amount of generation that we have now available, and even given the pipelines that we have now on utility scale solar. But let's go a little bit further into what's happening in the power market and the prices, which I already referred to a little bit. From a PV developer's point of view, you could say that the party is over. There was a lot of movement, you could say even a bit of a boom in the solar market and solar development market in Finland in early 2020s, 21, 22. At that time, the electricity prices were quite high, and it was a lot in the news as well. But since then, actually, the situation has stabilized quite a bit. There's been a new nuclear reactor has come online, the Olkiluoto 3 reactor, and also lots of new renewable installations have been finished. And now the prices have not only stabilized, but they also seem that they will stay very stable in the near future and not become very much higher in the future. So if you look at the levels where we are with Finland compared to, for example, Germany here, Finland is now, the future prices are now around 50 euros per megawatt hour or so, which is not much for many different operators and parties owning those projects. And if we look at the volatility of the market at the same time, so not only the average price is quite low, but also there's an increasing amount of negative price hours in Finland. So last year the figure was around 8%, so nearly 700 hours, and this year looks maybe a bit more positive. If you see the graph on the right hand side, it shows that the Finnish power market had 337 negative price hours by the end of Q2, basically. So double that, and you'd end up in somewhere below 700. So it's not getting actively worse this year. But on the other hand, it goes hand in hand with the fact that we haven't had much new renewable production coming online this year, or the figures have been way lower than they have been in some of the recent years. So we have a very high share of renewable power in Finland right now, 56% already, and we've seen quite a bit of negative price hours due to that. On the PV development front, if we talk a little bit more to the project perspective of things and project development business, we do have, as a result of the boom in the early 2020s, we do have a couple of gigawatts of ready-to-build projects. Nobody knows the exact figure, but we know that there are at least a dozen or so are on sale. And some of these projects on sale are even with subsidies, capex subsidies. But still, there have been very few deals or very few investment decisions about these projects. And why? It's important to understand why. I think first of the reasons for that is that site selection during the boom has been quite optimistic. There have been sites selected which have a too far distance to the connection point, or there have been sites that have less than optimal site, soil conditions, which can be very expensive to construct. And now, if you have an RTV project with a difficult condition and then the market prices are too low, it means that even though the project would be ready to build, it still may not be ready to be constructed or commercially viable at this stage. The second one, since the market has changed and there have been very few subsidy programs, I think in the last round of subsidies, which was the EU Renew FM subsidy round, it seems to me that the hunt for seizing any kind of subsidy has overruled the imperative to actually have a viable project. So I mean that projects have applied a subsidy so that they would be as sure as possible to actually get the subsidy decision, while maybe ignoring on purpose the fact that this subsidy might not be enough for this amount of capex so that the project would actually be commercially viable. So and I think that's very, very understandable. And I think that's also maybe a kind of a bet that, okay, if the power prices go up just a little bit, then this subsidy will be enough. But so far, we haven't seen that kind of development. So it means that some of these assets, even with subsidies, might not be able to go forward in the end. Also, partially, this was a design failure of the subsidy scheme, which specifically said that the project cannot be located on a farmland or on forest land. And in Finland, the farmlands are generally the best, of course. to build, but even some of the forest lands can be quite easy to build, and this subsidy design kind of sent these projects in places which would be in the most difficult soils and in the middle of nowhere of Finland in many cases. So it means that they will be to begin with the projects that were eligible for these funds were already quite difficult to implement. And the third thing why there hasn't been deals or investment decisions is that the PPA deals are very scarce. There's been a few, but very few, and I think the asking prices or the prices that the PPA buyers, buyers are ready to pay in this kind of market, they are just too low to enable the holder of the project to actually make that deal and still be able to get financing for the project and required rates of return for their investment. So since the industrial demand for new power has been weak, it's been kind of a buyer's market also in the power PPA agreement. PPA agreement market has also been buyer's market, and therefore there's been very few deals. And we've come to a point where, due to a stagnant market, things have been like this for a while already. It seems that some development companies are already slashing their PV teams, or even they have ceased operations altogether, also for reasons not related to Finland, but still we have seen cases like that. All right, so let's continue as soon as the slide changes. All right, so I've been casting the market as a gloomy place to be right now, and there are players who seem to have very little faith, but I think we should also ask if everything is really so bad. And of course, the whole point of this seminar is that there are opportunities that also exist in this market. So we shall overcome, but how shall we do that? Let's start with some general insight on the market and what's happening here. I think there is very much light in the end of the tunnel, and this time it's not even a train. It might be a data center, or it might be something else. But if we start with the data centers, it seems that in the Finnish market, those will be the fastest contributor to new power demand. We already have 1.2 gigawatts of new demand, which is expected to be built out by 2030. And the Data Center Association says that there are known investment plans of 3.4 gigawatts in total. So there's at least potential for a lot more of investments to happen in the near future. How this will turn out? Well, of course, there will be a lot of external international factors in play. I think one of the risks to this development is that the government is planning to increase the tax on power for data centers by about 20 euros per megawatt hour, which will cause a risk for some of these investments. But still, even with this change, I think for many data centers, they will see that Finnish climate and Finnish power prices will still make this market an attractive place. So we expect that many of these investments will still be fulfilled. And of course, the DC data center load profile is also favorable for PV, which will help that technology specifically, but of course also other renewable energy projects stand to benefit from this development. Then it's not only about data centers. There's also much potential in power to X and industrial electrification. Just if we look at the amount of bio-based CO2, which is a scarce resource in the e-fuel market, Finland has an abundant resource of that. Well, maybe not abundant, but it's a lot compared to many other places. And just to convert a significant part of that CO2 into e-fuels will require a 2-digit amount of gigawatts of new power. So if and when hopefully those investments go forward, then that will generate a lot of new demand for new power, especially under the current EU rules with very strict regulations on what kind of power you can use to produce green e-fuels, or so that the fuels are considered green in the future. There's also a bunch of applications for the new clean industrial investment tax break, which the government introduced this year. The amount of project capex that applied for this tax break was about 20 billion euros. And eligibility criteria for these projects was that they need to be finished within 36 months, which means by the end of 28. So if even a part of these projects take place, that would introduce significant new power consumption in Finland, which we would assume that a lot of that power consumption would be satisfied by only new greenfield power production and not with the existing power plants. So there's a lot of opportunity in the market looking at these numbers. But of course, this is the general market, which kind of floats all of the boats, and the question was how to capture the alpha, or find the alpha, and how to beat the general market. So I've taken 3 different strategies that I could think of, which could be ways to beat the general market right now or in the next few years. So first of all, finding alpha, number 1, behind the meter co-location. So continuing from the previous slide and prospect of having a lot more data centers and hydrogen plants and e-fuel plants, we do have an interesting piece of legislation that is now in the parliament, which would enable large power consumers to connect directly with large power producers. So now currently everything needs to go through the grid, and you cannot really avoid the grid fees and grid connection costs, and which come from an external source. Now, if this goes through, then you could be able to, for example, build a solar power plant next to a data center and then connect these two, and then not being subject to grid charges. And this could help to bridge the critical gap to profitability, and this could work especially in places which are less densely populated. So maybe it will be hard to get this done in southern Finland with the densest or with the most population, where many of the data centers are there. But also there's a lot of data centers in central Finland, northern Finland, where typically the places are less densely populated. So there very well could be places to find which could host a, let's say, 20-hectare solar power park, and then able to feed the data center directly. And this is further helped by the fact that PV and BESS permitting are quite quick here. So in the best case, if a data center investment decision is done during the construction time, it could be possible to find a site and get permits and even build a PV power plant next to it. So in timeline wise, those things could go well together. There's a slight risk of regulation here. Always things come with a disclaimer. So there's a government draft bill which would make PV permitting slightly more cumbersome and also ban the use of forest lands, at least in cases where a major part of the plant would be a forest land. So there's a grain of salt, but there are farms, at least some farms, also in the northern parts of Finland. So maybe those could be then used, or then peatlands can also be one option for that. So that's Alpha 1. Alpha 2 is BESS, and in this case, specifically BESS co-location. And why that? First of all, if you look at the revenues right now, or during the last 12 months, you can easily see that the revenues are very, very interesting for any kind of BESS project that can participate in the ancillary markets. And the amount of BESS build out right now is quite massive. So massive that the key constraint to new BESS projects right now is basically the connection contracts. There have already been 1.8 gigawatts of TSO connection contracts, and also a lot more connecting to regional DSO grids. However, the latest peak, which I looked up from the Fingrid site, they have now a statistics on how many megawatts of batteries are being charged or discharged in any moment with 3-minute intervals. I think the latest peak I observed was 125 megawatts only. So it seems that a lot of that 1.8 gigawatts of connections is still to be constructed. So these ancillary market revenues will certainly go down in the future, but how much? It's hard to say. The Fingrid's reserve market procurement is still, the expectation is that it will still be growing. So at least some of that growing supply will be able to access that Fingrid procurement still. And as said, since the greatest bottleneck for the BESS projects right now is the getting a connection agreement, then one way to circumvent that is to co-locate the BESS with your renewable project, which you are planning to do. So either with a solar project or with a wind project, if there is already such asset in your portfolio. And I think many wind power plants are already planning that, or even implementing that. And some solar power plants are also including BESS permits in their permitting to ensure that they can, at the very least, they can do some load shifting for their project, and therefore add some insurance against potential future proliferation of PV, and so if the midday prices will dive due to that. And on BESS still, just an additional point that even though the ancillary markets will be saturated at some point, I think that's probably clear. And even though the pure arbitrage strategy by buying cheap and selling expensive doesn't necessarily work as an only business case in Finland, it will still play a role in supporting revenues and helping the co-location case. So that's one of the reasons to at least include a possibility of installing a BESS system to the PV or wind farm. And finally, the third point, here it is. So this is more of a developer perspective, and if you are interested in perhaps turning tables and benefiting from the situation where some developers see and some investors see that, okay, the market is too difficult, so we're going to downsize or we're going to leave the market. This could open quite good opportunities for players who are interested in staying maybe a little bit longer in the party and seeing what will happen in the next few years. Since, as I said, we have this situation where there are many ready to build projects and still many under development as well. However, very few deals or investment decisions are being made right now. So if you can bring to the table a PPA, or if we see that the market is improving. Second, we see already that EPCs are gathering experience of the market, so the prices have been going down during the last few years. So our the first prices we have seen on implementations of projects in the Finnish market they do not tell the whole story. I think both thanks to the learnings and thanks to more careful site selection, I think the capex of the projects will be going down, and also the efficiency of panels will go up. So it means that the projects will become more financially viable. And the third thing is that there might be opportunities where a project must be sold. For example, because the subsidy is expiring, or a permit is expiring, or a land lease is going to expire, or so. It's possible that there could be a beneficial deal available for a player who wants to join the market and maybe take a little additional risk. Or one opportunity is to enter early in a project that is promising. So there's definitely opportunities to benefit from all these three sources or these three factors, and it can provide a good value wrap if you are interested in that. So to close and to give you some thoughts on what how to proceed, just some execution considerations first. So on PV, first, the permitting quite fast in Finland. So from land closing the permits, it's possible to do in 1.5 years, 2 years on average. So still quite interesting in that, and provides possibilities to go forward quite fast. Grid access seemed first to be a bottleneck for the PV market. Now it seems more that it's the optimal location and finding the off-taker. Those are the biggest hurdles for getting a project viable, and the grid access will be improving in the coming years as Fingrid is improving their major power lines in Finland. And in terms of project market, as said a couple of times, there are already ready to build projects available, but a ketchup bottle effect might well happen when these data center and other projects go forward. And then we have the BESS side. Here, permitting also is quick. We are seeing that it's becoming less straightforward as municipalities are seeing that, okay, we have 10 projects in this very small area, so how are we gonna ensure that these don't contradict each other? So there have been a bit of surprises nowadays with these permitting processes. For TSO connections, the quickest connections are, as one can understand, they are now sold out. However, not necessarily all of them are gonna get to FID. So Fingrid's logic is that if you connect to a station, you can basically reserve 125 megs of capacity for the same price as 25 megs of capacity. So many projects have maybe reserved the whole amount, but they might not have the capability or even the appetite to actually invest so much at once. So part of that capacity may well be freed later. And for 2028, there's definitely some capacity still available. So if somebody's willing to take the bet that, okay, I will be able to enter the market in 28, it will not be saturated, or maybe I will be happy with slightly lower IRR and still come in, I think there will definitely be capacity for that kind of project if you talk to the right people. And on the project markets, I think there are projects looking for investors right now, and there will be deals made. But as said, the steps towards market saturation are unclear, whether it's going to be somebody buying a 100 megawatt project, but actually implementing a 30 megawatt, and then there will be space for additional projects later. It's still a bit hard to predict how that will turn out. And finally, where to focus now? I would say three things. One is patience for opportunities. There are clearly a bunch of opportunities emerging in the next few years, but you cannot be very faint-hearted to pursue them. I think if you are here with too short of a perspective, then that's maybe not the place for you right now. Then there's the possibility of leveraging resources. So I think if you can rely on an on-demand arrangement, so a large fixed cost will not be maybe the best strategy at this point of the market. Having to maybe wait a long time until revenues kick in, it will drain cash fast. So even though the greenfield project development itself is not that expensive, if you do it with a large team, then that might not be the best way to approach this market right now. One specific thing to note about Finland is that the connection agreement is only paid in the end of the development project. So when you have all the permits, so this kind of enables you to postpone the largest part of costs up until the moment when you actually invest or have the PPA in place. At least if there's no competition for the connection, which is now much less than maybe a couple of years ago. And then third point is to select a strategy and build agile partnerships. So there, as said, there are many different ways to build options in the market. And there are players who are very much establishing footholds and already building their new first projects here. So definitely finding the right partners to operate in this market is important to execute whatever strategy you end up pursuing. And with that, of course, we'll be happy to talk more and spar about these topics and perhaps also find a way in which we could support your project in Finland. So thank you very much for your attention, and happy to take some questions after that. I think I can hear you, Victor.
Sorry about that. I was just saying thank you for this wonderful presentation. A lot of details, so yeah, I'm extending the invitation to all our participants. Please do ask your questions, because my feeling is that each and every one of you has a very specific interest, so we still have maybe 10 minutes in which we can answer quite a few questions. So if you have really specific ones, please go ahead. I saw that one of the questions was relating to cross-border interconnection and how that influences opportunities for Alpha in Finland. Do you have an opinion on this?
That's a very good question. I think one of the hardest parts of the power market and how to interpret movements in the power market is the fact that we are indeed very well interconnected, both to the south and then to Sweden and that way also over to Norway, Norwegian hydropower and so on. I think, or my understanding is that we have just introduced a new cross-border interconnection, and there are again, there is a new cross-border interconnection line which is being planned. I think that is again several hundred megawatts. So definitely that will be able to balance the maybe the highest highs and lowest lows in Nordic countries where the renewable amount of renewable power is increasing again. Maybe it will somehow affect the alpha, or like how much outsized wins you will be able to seize, for example, with the BESS systems. But on the other hand, if you look at the strategy number 1, which is the behind the meter co-location, I think if you're unable to pull off a good project where you can stay behind the meter and avoid kind of the fluctuation of power market and grid fees, I'm not sure if there will be enough interconnection, cables, so that could disrupt that alpha at least. But of course, the volatility might be going down, and I guess for the consumer that's a good thing.
All right. Then we have another question regarding market sentiment. So what is the market sentiment regarding co-located PV and BESS versus standalone BESS in terms of development split and capital allocation? And if I can just add another short comment, this is a question that we have been faced with in so many of other European markets as well, so not only on Finland.
Yeah, in terms of development split, you mean, I wonder if this means that how big part of the projects of BESS are co-located and how big part are standalone? Perhaps
Yeah,
so.
so
If that's the case,
popularity
yeah.
and capital allocation.
Yeah, I think well, my understanding certainly is that most of the BESS capacity we have right now is coming from standalone projects. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think that's definitely the most significant part is from standalone assets. And a lot of that is because the hybridization of existing power plants has been technically slightly difficult, or not technically. Well, it's easy to technically place a BESS into a wind power plant, but then taking into account the grid code and all the requirements there are for this kind of hybridization project, I think that's made the co-location a bit hard in the beginning. Now those kind of projects are becoming more easy, to my understanding. But anyway, so far the standalone BESS has been the way to go in this market, and I think most of the capital definitely is there.
And you envision this trend to keep going in the same direction in the future?
Well, I think that now, of course, the most lucrative day to be on the BESS market is yesterday, and even better is 2 days ago, and so on. So, like, I think the best days, or many of the best days of installing BESS will happen during the time when standalone is just much easier to implement, and therefore the amount of hybrid power plants will not be as high. However, hybridization of power plants will offer potential upside benefits and also avoidance of risks, which are independent of the ancillary market revenues or these outsized revenues that we are seeing right now. So I think it may well be that in the long term, actually, even after the build out of standalone BESS comes to a halt or decreases a lot, even after that, we might see quite a bit of co-located BESS for the very reason that the BESS works as an insurance to make the PV or wind projects better.
Yeah, indeed. All right. I think we might have one more question, but unfortunately our time is up. So if you still have questions for Matti and you haven't gotten a chance to ask him, you don't need to worry, because you can find and actually meet Matti face to face on November 13 during our Solarplaza Summit Finland. And he will be delivering our closing keynote there, a sneak preview into what the Finnish market would look like 1 year from then. So 1 year and a couple of months from now. Thank you once again, Matti, for this wonderful presentation and for taking the questions. We look forward to meeting you in Helsinki on November 13. And if you're a fan of other Solarplaza summits, we do have some upcoming ones that I wanted to mention to you. So we do have the Energy Storage Germany Summit taking place on December 9th in Cologne. And we have, since you also mentioned Sweden, we also have the Sweden Summit happening next year on 5th of March. If you're interested to get yourself some deals on ticket prices, make sure to scan the QR codes that are showing on screen now. And that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again in the next Solarplaza webinar and in the next Solarplaza Summit. Thanks again, Matti. Have a great day to everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. See you at Solarplaza.
See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.